everybody? Happy Wednesday. So good to see you live from Ohio. This is the Fraudcast, and look who we got here. Marcy, Jared, our man Justin Hickens, Blaze in the house, JRMT Consulting, Ms. D in the house. Your very special friend, host of the Digital Edge, Ellie Ronning in the house, Carrie Golden, Radar Love in the house, Mr. Preston, Jamie, Matthew, my main man, Ryan McDonald, Hollywood's Ben Lee, Katarina, Emma, Jay. Throw up J's in the chat for Jay. Wait, I thought I saw Jessica Flores is here. You just popped on. I thought you might have been the mystery Jay, but you're not the mystery Jay. You are our own Jessica Flores. Great to see you. Emma's here. Caroline's here. Danny, Riley, Caden, Mike, and Bradley are here. I'm so excited that y'all are here because today, my friends, is a very special day. We're not talking about Skyline Chili over here in Cincinnati. We're talking about something else. And if you know Skyline Chili, you know what emojis in the chat if you know what I'm getting at, right? That is an adventure in and of itself. Gross. Anyhow, I want to introduce our very special guest for today. She is the manager of loss prevention and investigations at Peloton, but she's so much more than that. She is a certified forensic interviewer. Our own Ms. D labeled her, and I think all of us would agree that she is the GOAT of getting it done. As we used to say in baseball, she's number 10 in your playbook, number 1 in your heart. She is the dean of the Soucy School of Communications. I'm proud to call her a friend, a colleague, and someone who is just an all-around awesome person. Give it up for the one and only Shelley Soucy. Shelley, how you doing?
I am like, wow. Like, seriously, the hype man thing. I've heard you do it 1,000 times, and every now and I'm like on the receiving end, I'm like, wow. Well, that's to live up to.
That's 8 years to college for you, Shelley, right there. So,
man, I like it. It's a degree well earned, sir. The Soucy School of Communication gives you 2 thumbs up.
Thank you. I'm glad my night courses are paying off because I've been doing it online and I'm getting accredited. So, speaking of school, take us back to kindergarten, Shelley. No. Look, we all know that you have been someone that we have learned so much from. I would argue more than you've learned from this guy right here. We've all learned so much from Shelley week over week, month over month, and coming out here every Wednesday. Why, I think, if I have to do the who, what, where, when, why, and how, why did you get into this field? What drives you? And how has it all been going from as far back as you dare to take us? The floor is yours, my friend. This is your life.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, it all started on a really crazy Friday night in Southern California in 1980 something. And the brakes went out on the way to the hospital. And from there, it's just been chaos. So, but honestly, that is the story that my father likes to tell. So I think I'll start with the biggest thing, how I got in here into fraud. And it wasn't ever something that was on my mind. So I was telling Vito earlier, my BA is in general studies with an emphasis on English literature. I took an internship at Disney because I needed a break from school. And my dad, who was paying the bills, literally wouldn't let me take a semester off. So like, what if I worked for Walt Disney World? He's like, yeah, go ahead, have fun. Look sweet. And that turned into me finishing my degree and then a 17-year career at Disney. And yet I'm still 32 and it's amazing. So, and it was amazing. I worked in restaurants and I was the type of person who asked more questions all the time. And I learned that being a SME was probably the most valuable thing I could be. And just continued to ask questions. And about 10 years into my career, I was done with restaurants. I'd caught fire enough times to just not want to do it anymore. And needed to step into something else. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then by happenstance, I had to have a meet and greet with our team. We called advisory and assurance at Disney, but basically internal fraud and auditing is the best way to describe it. And I took a meet and greet with some people just because of some information that I needed to clarify. And the lady who was then end up later being my boss said, do you know I have an opening on my team? And her team was the investigators, the ones who interviewed. And I was like, no, I didn't. And do I even qualify for that? Like, I've never interviewed somebody for theft in my life or investigated something. She goes, you've investigated a lot of things. You just don't call it that. Okay. And she said something that I'll take to heart for the rest of my life. She's like, I could teach anybody how to interview. And her being a relative term, we can teach anybody how to interview. We can't teach people the knowledge that's in your head, the interworkings of the Disney company and food and beverage and all of those things and how things work. She goes, we can't teach that, but I can teach somebody how to interview. And so here I am many years later, and I fell in love with it. I am a weird person who thinks it's great to sit across from somebody and have the most awkward conversation you'll ever have with a stranger and get them to admit to some unfortunate situations.
Well, and I will say, Shelley, I don't ever feel I don't ever feel threatened when you're asking me questions, which is probably why you're such a good investigator, right? Or an interviewer as well. You can coax it out of anybody, and you'll probably find out. I'll probably incriminate myself in the next 45 minutes here because of that skill you have. In all seriousness, though, when you say that you've loved it, I think all of us here can attribute, or all of us here can attest to the passion that you have for your day to day, for something that all of us will admit is in many ways a loveless spot where we're always under pressure and under attack and under scrutiny for budgets and everything. So to lead with that kind of heart is just absolutely admirable in a world where it gets harder and harder to be inspired by other people's hearts. So we do some jazz finger snapping in the chat, please, or on camera. There you go. For Shell. Yes, look at Blaze with the jazz finger snapping. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
I got a question for you though, because I wanted to double tap on something there.
Yeah.
Restaurants. Okay. When I'm running for president, no, I'm not. But if I were to run for president, I would reinstitute the draft. But rather than a military draft, it would be everybody has to work in food service. Because I do believe that in food service, you are meeting strangers. You are seeing how gross your food might be. You're learning like the worst of people. What do you take, if anything? You might just say to me, Vito, that's nuts. I'm not voting for you. And I would agree with you. But what do you take, if anything, into the world of investigations, into the broader fraud world, or into your life now that you probably gleaned, turning tables back in the day? Would love to hear how you look back on that time.
Oh yeah. So I firmly believe you'll have my vote. If everybody has to work in the restaurant industry, it's in some way, shape, or form. Hot damn, that'll teach you so much about yourself and people, and also you will have zero filter. Just none. That's just gone. And you'll be a walking HR case because that's the only way we survive. But for me, I think, and you have to take this into consideration, and this is one of my favorite things that I always tell people. I worked in restaurants on steroids. I worked in restaurants in the middle of Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World. The largest restaurant I worked at sat 400 people in a turn and had characters. If you worked at Chili's, I get it. That's busy. You still have no idea what I dealt with in a day. So the level, every food and beverage person gets mad respect, but I literally lived in chaos for 10 years. I worked in resorts. I worked in parks. I did festivals, inside, outside, rain, shine, Florida. That's pretty much all you have to say. And I think that's the biggest thing I took from restaurants. Chaos is what you make of it. And chaos only disrupts you if you let it disrupt you. You just have to let it work and just know that it'll come out and okay in the end. I mean, sure, people may be singed. And you may fall, you may get food spilled on you. I can tell you so many fun stories, but I won't because we only have so much time. But I think that's it. I tell people all the time, if I'm interviewing like for a job, they said one of your the best things that you're best at. And I said, managing change, because I had to do it all the time. You pivot and you just don't let it affect you, because if you let it affect you, then it affects everybody that surrounds you. I walk into a situation as calm as I can be because everybody else is in a dead panic. And I'm like, y'all, it's cool. The person's just on fire. Let's put them out and just roll with it and make it work, because you're feeding that energy. And that's kind of how I look at it in interviews. I'm feeding that energy. If I come in and I'm nervous and I'm doing whatever, then they're going to be nervous. They're taking their cues from me. And I mean, I gave Vito a clip of one of the things that I love. And that was, and for those of you who heard it, sorry, but treating people as a human being was a big thing. Respect and integrity. I don't care. I mean, I care what you did on a level, but I'm still going to sit here and treat you with the respect that you deserve, because you're a human being. And that's kind of where I rolled with a lot of the things as far as interviewing, and then restaurants. But yeah, restaurants, I think that's it. The chaos. Just don't let the chaos affect you.
There's so much to pull from that. I mean this sincerely. I wrote down on this card right here, this Westin Hotels and Resort, part of Marriott Bonvoy. If you want to use your Bonvoy points, come to the Westin Hotel and Resorts. But I wrote down on my Westin Hotel and Resorts, chaos is what you make of it. And I don't care if you're an IC, a manager, if you're a seller, if you're a technical lead, whatever you are. I don't care if you're in tech. I don't care if you're in construction. Whatever. I think genuinely, that is just amazing life advice. So please, if you remember one thing from this, and for everyone for whomever will be editing this episode to put onto the fine platforms of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and KLTV and Amarillo, thank you for hosting us every week on your public access channel. Please zoom in on this, clip this. Chaos is what you make of it, and then maybe graphic folk can put quotes around it and attribute it to the one and only Shelley Soucy. That is just fantastic. So let's talk chaos. Chaos. Do not fear chaos. Thrive on chaos, says Preston Clegg. And abso-freaking-lutely. Next merch, absolutely. Jared, Shelley, NIL deal that you'll get from coming onto the Fraudcast. We will make that merch, and that will all go to you, my friend. So there you go. Jen and I are not very good at making t-shirts, though. So, don't hold your breath on it. Chaos, the only item not shown on the menu, but served up every day, says our own Ryan McDonald. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Shelley, I'm curious. You get out of the restaurant industry. You get this job that you're not even thinking you're, qualified for, and you kind of jump in. It sounds like you were diving headfirst into chaos there. So what was that early stage like for you? And how do you think that period has affected who you are now as a professional?
It was a lot of learning, huge learning curve. I think jumping into something I had literally no idea about. Somebody mentioned in the thing, Wicklander. Yeah. So B. Peters. Yep. Wicklander. So it was Wicklander to out. Yeah, nobody ever says the Z right. Stop it. The WZ method. It was something I never experienced. I looked at it online when I discovered that's what they needed to do. And so for me, and this is, I think, even in my early days at restaurants, and training, let the trainer train you and ask questions. Yes, thank you, Vito. Zoolander. Let the SME do their job. Let them train you and absorb. And later on, I learned, hey, that's active listening. If you don't know about active listening, go look it up. It's the best thing you'll ever teach yourself. And not listening to respond. But taking that time to let somebody teach you how to do something and then asking for feedback. It's asking directly for feedback is a humbling experience that most people do not do. And then how you take the feedback is critical. Don't listen for feedback or ask for feedback to respond to it and go, nah, take it and go, well, that's their perspective. And if that's their perspective, it could be somebody else's perspective. So how do I change that? What do I do? How do I get better? And just keep progressing. We're never going to stop learning. And the people who are in the positions that they're in are there for a reason. And take that into consideration. Maybe you will be as good as them one day because they're amazing. Maybe you'll be better than them. I still will like to say in my group that we had the CFI exam. And we didn't all do it at the same time. Meanwhile, in case anybody was wondering, there were 7 of us for all of Walt Disney World. And there's more than 7 employees at Walt Disney World. So we were small, very tight group. And when I took my CFI, I came in and told them what my grade was afterwards. I might have scored higher than all of my peers and my leaders. And they were like, well, really? And I was like, yeah. I took studying very seriously.
Amazing. And we wouldn't expect, well, we wouldn't expect anything less from you, to not knock it out of the park. So there's so much going on in the chat. I want to welcome everyone else to, come off mute and talk to Shelley as well. This is not some boring fraud interview where it's just 2 people talking. This is y'all's time to better know Shelley and then therefore better know yourselves. I'd love to know how you go from doing investigations at a mom and pop shop like Disney, a tiny little company like that, into the broader ecom world. I'm sure there's a journey and a half there, but I think my questions are second, third, maybe 10th best to some of the questions that we might have here. So I'm going to take a pause. I have no water here whatsoever. I am going to marinate. I was going to say marinate on myself. That's gross. I'm just going to, not talk for a few seconds here and allow y'all to jump in here.
Throw it out there. I open up my full closet.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, when you mentioned that you were presented with the opportunity, but you were kind of unsure of yourself because you really hadn't grown into who you became. How did you fight that version of imposter syndrome? And what advice would you have for those that are moving laterally to get the experience, but then when they're presented with that opportunity, they may not know how to correctly articulate that, yes, I'm capable of doing it, or I appreciate you for seeing that in me. How do I ask for growth, or how do I ask for mentorship? And then they be willing to go through that process to grow that person into such position too.
That was a lot. I'm going to try to unpack that all. So first things first, I'm the coolest person I know, and I'm also the most humble person I know. Do I firmly believe that? Absolutely, because I have to. And that confidence within yourself and your abilities is huge. But having a huge level of humbleness inside that confidence, I think is where you get that sweet spot of, I am scared hopeless, but I can do this. I can do hard things. Whatever it is. I mean, it's the Olympics time and I love the Olympics. So I can do hard things. They're doing way harder things than me, but you have to take that on a personal level. So I don't know if I ever actually suffered from imposter syndrome other than the fact that I said, well, it's something I don't know yet. Let's give it a shot. And if I suck at it, well, then we've all learned a life lesson. But what's the opportunity that I'm giving up if I am afraid of taking the next step and giving it a shot? There's definitely things in my life I'm never going to try. Skydiving is never happening. Nope, not happening. But there's definitely no way. But there's definitely things that I look at. I'm like, yeah, no, not a clue. So I think to kind of try to get you the best answer is, if you're not believing in yourself, I think you're doing yourself the biggest disservice. You are smarter than you realize. You just have to give yourself that opportunity. And you don't need outside validation, though it's awesome. You don't need outside validation to be amazing. You need your validation first and then go forward. But still, again, that humbleness is incredibly important because you don't want to come across as the coolest person in the room. And then you're that person that nobody wants to talk to. But the humbleness gives you that ability to ask for feedback and learn from others and be better than you were yesterday.
If you think about learning guitar, I'd always say all the great guitar players are like messed up people. you
Yes.
know, and if they could do it, I could do it too, right? They're all drug
Well,
like I don't
one of
know how
my
that relates.
one of my favorite guitarists is Tom Morello. I mean, he's amazing. And he talks about learning guitar. He was at school at Yale because he graduated from Yale. And because his mother said he had to be well educated. And he was learning the guitar at night in his dorm room until his fingers bled because he wanted to be the best, but he still had to go to school during the day. So we just make, if we want it, we make it happen.
Fantastic question, Misty, and fantastic responses, Shelley. Blaze has a really good question here. When do fraud people get validation? I think it's a leading question. I think we know it's few and far between, but I think it's also a great bridge as to how do you go from Disney into e-com, and once you get into e-com and you're drinking out of the fire hose there, you're getting hit with not just fraud, right? Not just like payment level fraud, but returns abuse and loyalty abuse and all these other things that we've talked about week over week. How do you feel validation in that role? So that's a multi-pronged question there that could span generations. But I'm wondering if you could take us to, Disney final day and bring us into ecom first day and see how things changed, what you learned, and where you found, was it still finding validation internally? Was it still looking for feedback and using that? Did you build on it or did you develop a new superpower? I've asked you 19 questions there, and I think we all want to hear every single response you could possibly have to that. So thank you.
Sure. Laundry list. I should be taking notes. So last day Disney, first day e-commerce and all that world, that was a huge shift. I was lucky enough to enter into a position that they were looking for my skill set, but then it turns out they really didn't need my skill set as much because the internal investigations was a lot lower than I want to say what I was used to. So because I can't toot my own horn, here I am. While I was an investigator at Disney, I did over 500 interviews. That's a lot. The most I did in one day was 5. By the end of that, you don't even know what your own name is. I'm just glad I had a name tag on that day. So I was lucky enough, they were looking for that Wicklander and they were looking for the CFI and the investigations. And then when I got there, I started learning the systems and saying, okay, what do I need to know about the systems? And then my boss at the time tossed me something. He goes, hey, so we report on e-commerce fraud and chargebacks. We don't own the contract, but we report on it. I'm like, okay, cool. And really, he was looking for me to investigate the fraud labeled chargebacks and see if they were true fraud. Well, yeah, some of them were. And then I found a huge gap. And then I was like, hey, did you know that we weren't responding to chargebacks at all? So let's start doing that. And then little bites. I took off a bite here and a bite here. And I was like, well, I don't know what a chargeback is. So let's go Google what a chargeback is and go from there. And then see and okay, learn. And then now people are asking me questions. And I go, oh, well, I'm going to need to know the answers to these questions. Let's learn more. Let's learn more. And I tell people in my world, I learn about things as I need them because there's a lot going on up here. And I'm only pulling from the top level of a thing that I'm looking at right now. Somebody asked me something about referral codes today. And I was like, wow. I'm going to put a pause on that because I haven't had to dig deeper into referral codes. I'll get back to you in 48 hours because now I've got to go look at referral codes, but it hasn't popped up and it hasn't been something that's a primary. So take little chunks. Don't try to learn everything at once. And then slowly just establish your thing and don't be afraid to ask other people questions or Google. Google's your best friend. And just learn through those processes.
Has anyone felt similar in terms of when you started in ecom, when you started in, the fraud world even? Is any of this ringing perhaps so true that the hairs on the back of your neck are standing up right now? Would love to hear from you and would love to hear if, Shelley's experience is something that you feel and you wish you could do differently if you go back in time. So I'm going to take a pause and a sip of my imaginary water bottle because I want to hear from you. And so does Shelley. And so does Jenna
Yeah.
and Ellie.
And
And
I'm going to come back
Blaze.
to your validation question, Blaine, as soon
Yes.
if anybody else has something to say.
Yeah, I will say that I had no idea what I was doing when I got into payments, except I love to shop. And I wanted it, I always thought the best place to go shopping was Neiman Marcus. And so I always try to give a Neiman Marcus experience. But we deal with programming and applications and UI, UX and this and that. And through the whole career, there's been things like we used to say that they hired a handicap in Coral Springs because every terminal that we got was misprogrammed. We're like, what are they doing over there? Well, come to find out, they were putting them on an autoloader, and the autoloader had a bunk program. So every terminal, and I mean, here they're getting all these calls in to reprogram, and nobody's looking at the big picture. And so, and then when you're doing custom, like almost everybody here uses custom software implementations. Some people need this, some people need that. Some people need a little more of this. And then who knows how to get that thing turned on? And so, I mean, I love looking at people's proposals for the project because I'm like, they do not know what they're talking about. That's not how I go. That's not how it works. But they might be able to get it done. So you're always learning, and hopefully like amazing professionals that you can call up and go, okay, how does this work? What are they doing? And then you can look, because I was listening to an interview and the lady said, she was being interviewed by these lawyers. What I like to do is go to their website and look and see what banks they're registered with. And then I have an idea, and I look at their website to see what they can do. And I've learned that you can look at the website and not know a darn thing about them, because you put a website up there. So you look whatever it is that you want people to think you are. And so, and sometimes it's not true. Sometimes it's more than what they have up there. So you have to learn that skill that Shelley has, where she can get a lot more from the conversation than the question she's asking, because she has the ability to perceive that information and discover.
Well said, Carrie. And I think the humility element is huge for all of us here. We get into agentic commerce. You heard that a million times. We get into all these like new areas of technology in and of itself. Technology, you're not supposed to know technology. It's always changing. So if you're operating in a position where you are claiming to know it all, my friend, number one, I have a bridge in Brooklyn I want to sell you. Number two, like you're about to be with the dodo bird, because nobody's going to take you seriously. Discovery is not just for sellers, it's also for ICs. Like we have to figure out what we don't know, pull a Shelley move and say, hey, I'll get back to you in a little bit. And that will just be so much more appreciated than someone who's just blathering nonsense, because we could smell it. There's a gut response to these things that everyone has. So well said, Carrie. Well said, Shelley. And Shelley, to that point, we're going to bring back Blaze. And Blaze, I see you off mute. I was going to go back to your question about where you find validation, but I would love to hear your voice, my friend. How are you, Blaze?
Oh, good. Sorry, I've been away. So yeah, to more color from my comment, I think fraud practitioners, I mean, in general, it's if you want a lot of validation from people outside the discipline, you need to find another industry or another discipline to be in, because we are the folks that always bring the bad news. And I think there's been a lot of discussion over on the last 10 years or so. And how do we reposition that to be we're not the big bringers of bad news, like we are revenue generators, et cetera, try and overcome that. But I mean, it's an industry where frequently you are coming to your peers and saying, okay, we have another problem. And we need either process changes or technology changes in order to address that. And another big challenge we have as an industry is a lot of the time when the correct time to act is before you have the problem. And so you're trying to talk to people about opportunity cost. If we don't act, we can expect potentially this much loss. And when you're talking to the C-suite, they've got someone who's promising actual revenue, not the potential we might lose. And so that's always been a challenge for us is it's difficult to compete on opportunity cost. So, this is a discipline where you have to be self-confident. Like
Absolutely.
you have to be satisfied with your own feedback and your own sense of worth.
You
That's not
No, absolutely. You hit it right, nail on the head. Like, absolutely. Because I was going to say, if you're looking for validation, you're in the wrong industry. The only person you're going to get validation from is yourself and your peers. And it's only if your peers do exactly what you did. We would sit second chair in an interview for training purposes or backup, whatever it is. You set second chair for a lot of different reasons. And I remember that's when you got validation, because they'd be like, hey, I really like how you said that. Or, hey, I hadn't approached it that way. You took this route when they said this. I didn't even think about doing that. That's now going in my playbook. But the rest of there's no validation. One of my favorite leaders when I was at Disney told me something once after I did a pretty harsh interview. And he's like, we have to sit down with our VP right now. And he goes, I'm going to let you know you did everything right. Nothing you did was wrong. But everybody's going to come in and play Monday morning quarterback with you. But guess what they can't do? Your job. All they can do is question your job. But they couldn't have sat in the chair that I sat in and dealt with this person and all of the things that happened in that room.
Flip that.
And that's
Flip
it.
that.
Monday morning quarterback is your worst enemy, because everybody's going to come in and go, oh, well, I caught $200,000 in fraud. Well, why didn't you catch it $100,000? Oh, please. Do you even want... So, and again, do I have the stats to say, hey, if you don't put this in place, it could be this much money? Well, yeah, that it could be, but it also could not be. I don't know what it's going to be. If I knew what it was going to be, I'd have the winning lottery numbers and I wouldn't be sitting here. So all I can tell you is you have a gap. It can cause a loss, and you probably should close the gap, because if you don't listen to me, you're real mad at me in about 3 weeks when there's a massive loss. And I look at you and go, told you so. So yeah, but yeah, validation, we're in the wrong business. I'm right there with you.
There's a point being articulated here, y'all. And it's about steeling yourself against the Monday morning quarterback and having the receipts.
Absolutely.
It's something we always talk about. I am not underestimating anyone here, but I can sense that there's at least one person in the room, and we eclipsed 30 people today, y'all. And that's the power. They call that the Soucy bump right there. They call that the Soucy bump. We eclipsed 30 people today. I can assume one of you is like, Shelley, I love that. I want to get there. But how do I steel myself against the Monday morning quarterback? Please, I know you're there. We love you. Come off mute and ask that question. And I'll take another sip of the water bottle that I don't have, or bring your own question. I'd love to just hear.
I'll dramatic pause. It goes back to confidence.
Shelley, how do we see silence on the broadcast?
Wow. I can't say it just like you do.
Well, we don't mistake silence for antipathy here. You know that. So please, we will. Preston, I see you come off mute.
Okay.
Man.
Yeah, Preston.
Yeah. Here's a good example. Probably this has actually been about 5 years ago before I actually started this, but part of the reason I got hired was because we actually had in December of 2020, well, of course, COVID was all over the world and everything. All of a sudden, we'd had our chargebacks all of a sudden start going higher and higher. And at one point, that in December of that year, we had $500,000 in chargebacks, which got to the point where it was basically getting, Visa and MasterCard going and saying, you got to get this under control. So they ended up bringing us in, but we nowadays get people who are like, you canceled $30,000 in sales, or you canceled this, whatever, and then luckily we have a manager and also the couple of layers of them who understand and they appreciate what we do, and they're like, well, yeah. So they say, oh, well, we could just get, if we got rid of the fraud team, we would have this much more revenue. Where it's like they go and say, okay, well, go ahead. You can go ahead and do that. Then you get to deal with this one. The next time it's $500,000 or more. And and you have to basically say, okay, you could get rid of us, but then you get to deal with this.
and they don't have the wheelhouse to deal with it. That is outstanding. If you get rid of the fraud team, you'd have X more amount of revenue. And everybody I saw their face laugh. That was outstanding. And if you didn't laugh, the ones who are not on camera, I know you were laughing. Because that's the biggest joke in the world. Why do you think they have fraud people? We're trained. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm trained to think like the shady person in the room. That's my whole job, is to figure out how you're doing can be manipulated for personal gain and in a different sense. That's what it is. You're looking at the end goal of, I've got this big, pretty, shiny project and it's going to be great and it's going to cure all of the world's problems and it's going to be great. And I'm like, yeah, but did you look at this back door? What? You've left a door wide open and somebody's going to come in and nobody's going to cure anything because you've left this door wide open.
Shelley, can I hop in for a second?
Please.
This is stirring up some memories.
Oh,
Spill the tea, Justin. Spill it.
I love it.
Well, I won't get into super detail, but I just remember at some point, right towards the end of my tenure at Cozy Earth, it did get to the point where any marketing gimmick or new thing they wanted to try, luckily I was able to convince everybody, say, hey, run it by me first, bring it over here and let me take a look at it. And, like Preston's been saying, like you've been saying, Shelley, it's like they didn't love that because they knew that I was going to throw up some speed bumps or something at the very least to slow down maybe what their idea was or their cool thing that was going to generate a bunch of revenue. And I remember one particular instance, they brought something, with some type of pop-up, maybe like spin the wheel and you get some type of prize on the site. And I just remember saying, well, what about the people that are going to do this? And they kind of looked at me and they said, well, do you really think people are going to do that? I said, I promise you without a doubt, they will do that. And there was pushback. And so I told them, I said, how about we do this? I want to work with you guys. It looks like I still need to build some trust. I said, let's run it for however many days we need to. I go, let me audit it each day. Let me audit the orders and the people that are using this gimmick. And when I find what I'm looking for, will you guys believe me that we need to somehow shut this loophole off? And they said, yeah, it didn't take more than a day or two for me to present evidence to them that people were actually abusing the system the way I predicted it would be abused, and it got fixed. But it just, once again, it bothered me to the point where it's like, look, I'm happy to help in this area, but I wish other people's minds were triggered to also look for that and say, hey, we thought about this, and then we realized people would do this, and so we didn't do it, versus why did it have to flow all the way down to me before, we brought up some concern to stop it?
I would like to add to that too, because working in fraud, there's already a lot of scrutiny. We're already looked at as the bad guys. So to me, when it relates to doing anything fraud prevention related, because we're consumers, we're parents, we're everything else that we're trying to fight, we can think about a concept, or a concept is approached to us, and we can automatically think, okay, this is what can happen. This is what can happen, to your point, Justin. And I think the goal could be to start teaching that we may not need to think outside the box or even in the box. Maybe we just need to readjust the tape to make sure that the box that we're using can hold what it is that we're looking to build or to revamp, as opposed to just completely scrapping it all together, because it's still good. It's just what can make it better.
That's awesome. I think that's perfect and spot on. And Justin, I laughed. I was hoping it would be hours that you found something, because those are the best. But I mean, honestly, go back to the validation. That's the closest thing you're going to get to validation, is when you can come in and go, told you so. And there you are. And you do it with such, I don't know, love in your heart, with a smile, and say, well, I did find this in a matter of a day. So maybe we could listen to me the first time next time. No. That'd be cool.
And Miss D, you bring up the parenting element, right? And, I have not been blessed to be a parent yet, but we were certainly working on it. And one of the things I think is, you got to mix the sweet with the sour, right? So maybe all of us, if we want to like rejigger this box and retape it and such, maybe all of us can take an opportunity to say, hey, we are risk analysts, right? But risk is not just fraud. There's also low risk and no risk or whatever. So, hey, marketing team, maybe look here. Maybe, by the way, like this segment of traffic over the last X amount of days, weeks, months, and years has been like notoriously good. So y'all should like focus on this group of people, juice them for the money. They're good for it. Chipotle's doing something right now. I don't know if you've been reading the news where they're understanding that their median buyer makes over 6 figures a year. So they're saying, how do we have more like upmarket offerings, right? Chipotle is about to get fancy, my friends. But that had to come from some sort of risk analysis where they were saying, hey, you're going to be tough here and you're going to have it easy on this route. So maybe we mix the sweet with the sour. Maybe we're saying no 90% of the time, and the other 10 we're saying you should say yes here. Shelley, what do you got?
I think that's good. And I want to add on to the risk analysis part, because it's not always just that. And I think you have to keep a level in there that says sometimes it's not the risk that's there, it's the risk that already took place. Because, hey, my stuff's already missing. When I found it, it was already missing. So here we can look forward, but then look back at the same time and try to find that sweet spot of the prevention, but you're still finding fraud. Fraud is still going to happen, but hopefully you find it in much smaller instances than we did before because you did a proper risk analysis at the beginning. I mean, what is it? The interviewers, certified forensic, certified fraud examiners. I've got too many certifications. Sorry, guys. I'm working on my CFE right now, but they talk about how 5% of a company's revenue is going to go missing to fraud. That's just what it is. But they never use the word acceptable. That's just the statistics of the risk analysis. And I remember being in a meeting once where somebody said, well, the acceptable fraud analysis is at 3%. I said, actually, industry standard is 5%. And they never use the word acceptable. That's what we expect by a risk analysis. And I said, maybe your risk analysis was different, but you never use the word acceptable because no fraud is actually acceptable. If you're not putting blockers in place, you've made it acceptable. You shouldn't leave the safe open with the sign that says, come take this money.
I don't think you will, but if you wanted to, here it is, right?
Right.
To quote, yes, Preston.
If you say that it's acceptable, then it's going to perpetuate.
Yes.
And
that is outstanding
great.
Right there. Because then your 5% turns into 10, turns into 20, and then it's out of control.
And the overreturn window has shifted.
Interesting story that happened yesterday. So it's risk, reward, or no reward, validation. So the CEO of I work with these guys at these ISOs, and they send over a file and they're like, oh, this is a great one. And I look at it and I said, this is totally fraud. This is so fraud. And they can't see it. It's really interesting because they think legit. I'm looking at it. So I look at it, it's a medical company and the email address is at Outlook. And I'm like, that they're HIPAA compliant. They have to use a domain DNS. This is okay. So I say, okay. And then another one at Gmail, but all the address and stuff match up. So I go look at the CEO, the alleged guy submitting this application. And it's a $6 billion corporation that nets $34 million a year. Okay. I'm like, okay, so let's get a little deeper. So I think, okay, well, so I go out and I call the number and I talk to the guy who says he is this CEO and he has his total Jamaican accent. And so I'm like, well, so normally I don't take the apps, but let me go ahead and get all your info. So I get the social, birth date, everything, driver's license, all of it. Their banking, he changes the bank account 3 times. Let's use Wells Fargo. No. Let's use these other 2 banks. One's a community bank. in Florida. The company's in California. I'm like, okay. And so anyway, of course, now I can go out to the Mac group and let them know, hey, if anybody submits an app for these guys, like it's going to be total fraud. And I'm like, okay, because what's the right thing to do now? I do have 3 bank accounts that I could go to the banks, but they never really like it if you go to them. I could go to the guys I know at the Secret Service. I know a couple guys over there because I've worked on cases with them. And I thought, but the person at risk most here is the CEO of this company. It took me 22 phone calls to get his assistant's assistant and his wife on a call, on a 3-way call. Because I called human resources and I said, look, I got this situation. It's weird. Can you reach up the channel? And she actually did. And they go, yeah, we got a call from human resources. I go, Loopy, yeah, that was me. I called her. But what happened was so interesting was the girl that is the assistant of the assistant started kind of bossing me and telling me all how it couldn't happen. And they have all these procedures. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, I'm calling to tell you that we know that. That's why we're calling, because he just needs to put a lock on his credit, because somebody has his social security number and is trying to set up line of credit accounts in his name. That's all.
Nice.
And so
I love it.
Yeah, I had to defer and, be nice. And of course, they never said thank you. And I thought about it and I thought, why did I do that? Why do you do that? I go, because it's the right thing to do, because that's the right thing to do. Right. That's why you do it. And you don't need a gold star. You don't need validation. You did your very best and you didn't try to be cruel or hurt someone, and you were good. Even though you might have been suffering. It took me 2 hours out of my day, but I thought these guys are out to get money and they're trying to fraud people, personal, people. And this guy's so busy, he might not see it. So I thought that's the right thing to do. I did it. So
I think that's
no reward, but
you don't need it.
Yeah.
I think you did the right thing. I mean, I've looked at how many interviews I've done where after somebody admitted to stealing from the company, they hugged me. Who does that? Somebody who just got you to admit to stealing.
Their heart. They got
that's it.
They got free.
Yeah.
The other thing was I got to work that muscle. I worked a muscle, what I call stalking, like you stalk something and you go for it. I was like, I'm going to find this guy. So I basically was able to go from zero, a Google search for this guy. And I got to the assistant of the assistant and his wife on the phone for a guy that runs a $6 billion company. So anything's possible, people, anything. What do you want to do? Go get it. Yeah. So I thought it was kind of fun.
That's fun.
I love that. Amen. Anything is possible. To quote Francis Albert, though, and now the time has come for me to take my final curtain, right? I love when we go into Fraudcast Overtime. It is just an absolute testament to this group and the conversations we have. So, Shelley, we have only scratched the surface, my friend, and I'm sure we can be seeing you next Wednesday and any other Wednesday moving forward. But since this is your curtain right here, I would love if you could send us off with your message of hope and inspiration for what we're all getting into. We're all seasoned, grizzled vets, some of us younger than others, and you all look very young. No one is wearing the age of the profession that we're in. So, Shelley, what sort of message of hope and inspiration do you have for this group as we get into Q2, Q3, Q4 of 2026, which presents itself to be a very challenging time, not only economically, but technologically and all the other logicallys? We'd love to hear from you. And again, to the whole crew, thank you for your amazing questions, your comments, your interactions. We are all under 30 here, Miss D. I just got my driver's license. I'm very excited, y'all. Shelley, the floor is yours, my friend.
So many things running through my head. Be persistent. Know that you're the expert in your field. The person that you're talking to probably isn't. And they may not even know anything about our field. Everybody thinks they know about fraud and loss prevention. And if they haven't done what we've done and been in the trenches, they know nothing. Um, so make sure that your voice is loud and be louder than the loudest person in the room, because what you're saying matters a lot. And nobody else is going to fight that fight for you. What I said to somebody at dinner last night, because I have random conversations about fraud at dinner. We were talking about the fraud triangle. And if you don't know the fraud triangle, please go look it up, because that's important to your life. The one thing you have control over is opportunity. That is the one thing we can control on the fraud triangle. Everything else, it's not ours. You control the opportunity, and they can't close the triangle. So don't leave the safe open with a sign that says, come take this money. I don't know, just have confidence in yourself. That's it. And smile and be happy. And hey, just remember, nobody's getting out of this alive.
Amen. Shelley, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? And how can people continue the conversation if you'll have them? You could also say, don't at me, no DMs, don't find me. But it's up to you. Shameless self-promotion right here for you, my friend.
Absolutely. You can find me, Shelley Soucy. My name is spelled correctly on here. If you forget the second E in my first name, then I don't answer. But at the top of the chat, I put my YouTube, or my YouTube. Lord, if I was on YouTube, my LinkedIn profile, but you can find me on there, and feel free, reach out as much as you want. I am sometimes really slow on LinkedIn, but I will be there. And I'm happy to talk anytime about fraud, because I love it, or interviewing, or any of those things. So please connect. The more of me know,
Shelley,
the better.
thank you. You have blessed all of us with
Thank
your
you.
time on the hot seat, which was very much a cool throne for you. We are just so grateful to have you. And from my heart, I'm so grateful for all of you for sticking around into Fraudcast After Hours, overtime, baby, with the one and only Shelley Soucy, certified forensic interviewer, manager of loss prevention investigations, number 10 in your scorecard, number 1 in your heart. Until next time, my friends, I wish you and your families a beautiful and blessed rest of the day and week. We'll see you next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Take care, y'all. Have a great one. And thank you to Shelley, Marcy, Justin, Blaze, Miss D, Ellie, Preston, Jamie, Ben, Robert, Carrie Golden, Radar Love, Katarina, Jessica, Danny, Riley, Caden, Bradley, Tina. Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thank you.